Hi, everyone, or good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today, as Katie said. I'm really excited to take you guys through everything that is AI and journalism, as I know it's a topic that a lot of us have been thinking about, but not necessarily utilizing. So, a bit about me. So, yes, I'm Vivienne Dovi. I'm a travel and beauty lifestyle journalist. I have bylines in The Telegraph, Glamour, Time Out, and other global publications. My expertise in championing Black stories and Black voices has recently led to a collaboration with Condé Nast Traveler on the five-part solo travel series on how it is to travel around Africa and the Caribbean as a solo Black woman. And this year, I also co-authored Lonely Planet's 2024 guidebook, amongst other things. I'm also the founder of Melanin Travel. So in 2017, I essentially was just annoyed at the industry and the lack of representation and just seeing how much discrimination there was against Black travelers. So I decided to create a platform with the mission to connect Black travelers to the world through content and experiences. Through that endeavor, I've worked with Intrepid Travel, Grenada Tourism Authority, Barbados Tourism Authority, and loads more. And currently, we have over 18,000 travelers in the community. And this passion of mine, which I used to see as a side hustle, but it's no longer a side hustle, very much a full hustle, also served as the master's research topic for my thesis, doing African studies at the University of Oxford. And as if I'm not busy already, I also am the founder of Akovi Comms, which is a communications consultancy for culture-led brands and individuals. And this came as a result of my 6-year experience at some of the leading marketing, media, and communication agencies in the world. So some of the common misconceptions that we have about AI. So one of them is that AI will replace human journalists. And so to that, I usually say that, AI doesn't necessarily replace it because you still need to have real world context as a journalist in order to have high quality work. And AI also can't necessarily build relationships with those sources, right? You need to go out and actually create those relationships. Another misconception is that AI is seen as quite robotic and lacks creativity. So with AI, as we'll go through in this session, you'll see that a lot of what you get is what you put in, which basically means it's the prompts that you use that results in the output that you get. So you need to have good prompts in order to produce more quality work, but also as we've seen, I'm pretty sure even if you haven't used Chat GPT, etc., you've seen you've seen a bad quality article that's been written, but there's no human intervention there. And the last one, which is the one that I've heard many, many times, is using AI when writing is seen as cheating because, real writers won't use it. Could we really consider it our own writing when we get a bit of help? And the way I see this is that AI should be used as something within your toolkit. It's not the be all and end all. It's the same way we might use Grammarly to do spell check. We might use certain databases to find information that we need. It's not everything. It's just another thing that you use as part of your process. And as a massive perfectionist, I won't lie, it was that last thought that I initially struggled to grapple with. But over time, when I used it more and more, I did see how it isn't actually cheating. And so another thing that I always say to my friends, or I often joke about with my friends, is that I feel that as writers, we often get the short straw because it's one of the only skills that you can have where if you delegate just a little bit of it, people question whether you're authentic anymore, whether you're still doing your job right. But we wouldn't question a lot of these other professionals that also use AI in their day to day. So I have 4 professions here. So one is a doctor. So if they use AI, which they do, to help them with diagnosing patients, we don't question their ability to be a doctor. Lawyers use AI in order to draft legal contracts, to review things, to automate certain processes during their day, but we don't see them any less intelligent or less of a lawyer. Personal trainers use AI in order to customize exercise routines for their clients. And we also don't see them as any less as a personal trainer when they go and actually fulfill those routines with their clients. And then to bring it back to something that's a little bit more creative. So when we look at photographers, and now you have AI programs where you can literally remove parts of your background, for example, we don't then question their entire career as a photographer because they might have used just a little tool in order to perfect their image or enhance their image. And so the one thing that these all have is that they all still have human judgment. So we have the right to basically use things and then use our expertise in order to enhance it, because AI still needs oversight. So, for example, if we decided to use AI right now in order to diagnose ourselves, we know that we could likely still be very wrong because we don't have the training, the expertise, the experience as a doctor in order to make sure that that diagnosis is correct. Same as being a lawyer, we could create a document or a draft on AI, on ChatGPT, for example. However, we can't be 100% certain that that's the correct document to actually use because we need to have human input. So as journalists, storytelling is our expertise. We have the accolades, we have the bylines already, we have the pictures. So if we now decide to start using the tool, that doesn't mean that all of that just suddenly disappears. We still need to basically have our input on those stories and pictures that we use ChatGPT for or other AI platforms for, to create what we need. So human judgment is really, really important in all of this. And hopefully that dispels a lot of misconceptions about using AI in the writing process. So now that AI is not seen as the enemy anymore, hopefully we're going to start seeing it as on the way of being an ally. And so essentially, just to kind of recap, AI doesn't replace your role as a writer, but it enhances it. You still need to be a good writer in order to use AI tools. If you are a bad writer, it will come out very, very quickly. You need to start using AI as your friend, or at least kind of see it as a person, even though it's not. So for an example, if you decided to give a junior employee a task at work and you gave them no context, you gave them no instructions, but you just told them to go off and do it, what they're going to give back to you is likely not going to be a good product because you haven't given them enough input, you haven't given them enough context to understand what you need as their senior. It's the same thing with ChatGPT or AI. You get what you put into it. So the more context, the more information you give AI, the more it will be able to give back to you in a way that is suitable and tailored to your needs. And then also using it as your friend. Another example would be if you were to go and ask for advice from your best friend, you have to give them a lot of context in order for them to give you counsel that you need. But even with the counsel that they give you, you still have to ask questions. You still need to fill them in on other things that they may not understand. Or they might, if it was advice about your job, they might give you certain pointers about your job, which you as the expert, you know necessarily isn't true. Or you might be like, okay, let me just go and double check that or Google that because I'm not too sure if that's correct. Same thing with ChatGPT and AI in general. So you always have to fact check. Always, always, always. It's one of the biggest things you have to do when it comes to AI. But in general, again, it's the reason why I say to kind of treat AI as if it's a person is because when you start talking to it in that way of, I need to feed it certain information, I need to give it certain context because I want this certain type of advice, it will become easier over time. Okay, so the process of this presentation is going to go through the different stages, mainly with freelancers in mind, but you can still use this if you're in-house. So we'll start with idea generation, drafting pitches, emailing and following up, and then leading to your first draft of your article, and then lastly, editing. Okay, so before we get into idea generation, I'm sure most of you know that there are so many different AI platforms. Even though I keep saying ChatGPT, it's because it's the one that is the most known and most widely used by many people. But there are so many others that are available. In fact, I was just saying to Kaylee and Jem from Journal Resources that ChatGPT used to be the one that I used a lot, but I actually cancelled my paid subscription and now I love Claude. But I know a lot of people who have migrated to Claude, but they all have their pros and cons. So you'll obviously have this presentation afterwards, so you can look through this in more depth. But some of the most popular ones and ones that I think that journalists should be aware of is ChatGPT. That's a great starting point. It can help you, write articles, brainstorm ideas. It doesn't necessarily have access to the most recent news and data. For the free version, it's up until January 2022. And then for the paid version, it's in late 2023. With Claude, the reason why I actually prefer Claude is because that robotic misconception that a lot of people have from AI is because so many people were using ChatGPT. So we all see how ChatGPT operates, the type of words that it uses, etc. With Claude, it has a more human-like nature. When it talks to you, it actually feels more human than ChatGPT. The way in which it writes seems to be a bit more flowy. So I actually prefer, and then also they give you deeper reasonings and explanations behind the answers that it gives you, whereas ChatGPT doesn't necessarily do that. The free version can be quite slow. They do only give you a certain number of prompts that you can make by a certain period, and then you have to wait a little bit longer to be able to use it again. I will be getting the paid version, but I think the free version is also a great place to start. And then you've got Google Gemini, which for journalists is the most like up-to-date information because it's kind of like making a customized Google search in a sense. So it does feel like an extended Google search as I put as the pro, but one of the cons is that it can be quite limited availability on the free version. If you wanted to do extensive research, that tends to be the con for a lot of these, is that if it's the free version, if you want to do a more extensive search, they obviously want you to pay more. Then you've got Perplexity. So Perplexity is quite popular with people who use sources. So essentially what you could do is ask Perplexity something and then also ask it to show you where the sources come from. And it will generate a list and tell you exactly where it's taken that information from, meaning that it's easier for you to do that fact checking process. However, some do say that it can provide questionable responses. Again, that's something that is actually affected by something that affects a lot of these AI platforms. So it's not just Perplexity. And then a more recent one, which I have not used yet, but it's definitely on my list, is Notebook LM. So essentially, you can upload a certain number of sources or documents, or basically you can create your own database and get the AI to generate answers only from those resources that you've put in there. So if you were doing, I know this is about journalism, but if I was to take it back to my academic work, if I was doing a thesis and I decided that I wanted to, or like an essay, and I decided I wanted to use a certain amount of documents and publications in order to get that information, I can ask Notebook LM only based on those sources in the platform. So it won't be using things from the whole World Wide Web, basically. So it helps if you need to structure your content, but of course that can be quite overwhelming. So something you're going to see that's throughout this presentation is at the bottom or throughout, it will basically have a prompt. And these are the prompts that afterwards, when you get the presentation, you can take them and copy and paste. And that can be the way that you start your conversations with these AI platforms. So for this one, basically, if you're feeling quite overwhelmed, because it can be, you can easily just ask these AI platforms how you can use them based on what you do. So for me, I could put, I'm Vivienne Dovi. I just told you my bio. I can throw that bio in there, which I have. And please give me practical examples in layman's terms, how I can best use your platform, providing examples for each point in bullet point form. So for me, it would come out with, this is what you can do as a travel journalist. This is what you can also do as a PR. This is what you can do as an entrepreneur. And it can provide actionable examples of this is how you use it. I will be doing live demos through this, but this one's a bit simple, so I will leave this one, but have fun using this one because it will be quite interesting to see what you guys come up with. So idea generation. Disclaimer. So this is the part of AI where I would say I use it the least. I feel that, again, as good writers, one of the skills that we should have is being able to generate really good ideas. So I'm not necessarily advocating for you have no ideas ever and you should go on AI and just see what it comes out with. Because again, if sometimes these things can be a little bit generic, which I'll take you through in a second with the prompts, other people who use AI will be able to see it a mile away that you've taken these ideas from there. So it's better used as something to refine your ideas. But anyway, I thought I would still show you because I'm supposed to show you all the aspects of the process. So I'm going to show you on ChatGPT. if it lets me, oh, need to minimize this. Okay. Okay. So what I want to show you about what I was mentioning about the prompts and how what you get is dependent on what you put into it. So I'm going to start with the most basic one, which is give me reasons why travel readers should visit Barbados. And this is going to be a bit long, so we won't go into this in depth, but you're going to see that it generates this, which will take a bit of time. So it's going to come out with probably between 5 to 10 reasons. As you can see, some of them are a little bit more generic than others: beaches, heritage, food scene, etc. But to show you how this changes, so now I put, give me reasons why Black females travel readers should visit Barbados. And then as this finishes, cool, I think that's the last one. So what you'll notice is, what it should do is now obviously change, because I've added the added context that it's not just travel readers, it's the fact that it needs to be for women, it's the fact that they need to be Black, and what they consider. So now instead of talking about year-round sunshine and tropical climate and beaches, it's now started to change to connection to African heritage and Black-owned businesses and sense of belonging and community, which are things that we actually do travel for. So the last prompt, which here is, I'm currently drafting pictures on Barbados for a travel trade publication. Please give me reasons why Black female travel readers should enjoy heritage, who enjoy heritage, sorry, and meeting new people should visit Barbados for an opinion piece. Now, I threw in an opinion piece just at the end because I wanted to show that you can talk about different formats of a piece. It probably won't really do well with that because what I've asked it isn't necessarily an opinion, but you'll see again how it changes. There you go. How it will change the type of stuff that it asks, also that it gives back. So now, because I spoke about meeting new people, now it's coming back with the warmth of a shared cultural experience. It's talking about crop over because it's celebrating Black culture, local women entrepreneurs. So you can see that it slightly changes what it's giving me. And the paragraphs are essentially just including certain things that I could include for reasons why people should visit Barbados. But that just shows you. Yeah, so that would just show you again that the prompts can change the level of output that you get. And so the takeaway with this would be for idea generation is that it can help with mental blocks. So sometimes you might not know what exactly to pitch, but you know your overarching topic, which is Barbados. For example, maybe I didn't know about crop over, but by the end of that, I would have seen crop over come up, and then I decide, oh, let's actually start researching more about crop over festival to see how that could become a pitch in the future. So tools like AI, which is the Google one, people tend to use that a lot for idea generation because it is the most up-to-date one that you can use online. As I mentioned, ChatGPT is up till 2022 and 2023 if it's paid. It can also help you get additional topics and theme angles depending on your niche. So again, if I just put Black travel, it will come up with certain topics. But the moment I change that to Black male travel, Black female travel, it'll give me additional topics. I could have also written, I'm a Black travel writer who focuses on wellness and spas. And then it would also change. Or maybe I would be a Caribbean, a Black travel writer who focuses on wellness and spas solely in Africa. And it will produce an entirely new set of ideas for me. Also, it can give you advice on the format of a piece. So, for example, if I had, and we'll be talking about pitching in a second, but if I had a pitch, but I wasn't too sure whether it should be a feature pitch, or it should be an opinion pitch, or it should be a reported piece, I can ask AI to tell me what my pitch or what my idea would look like in those different formats. And I've done that before so that I can get an idea of what would I prefer to pitch it as. And as always, you always have to fact check. And so I'm going to give you an example of one time something that happened on Gemini actually, and when I saw it, I just laughed. So I was Googling, also I was using AI, the Google Gemini, to try and figure out some reasons that most travelers decide to go to Nairobi, because I have my reasons, but I wanted to see what the general reasons were. And I did that this year, so 2024, and it basically told me that it was Nairobi's 100th anniversary. And then when I went to go and Google it, I saw that they were way over 100 years old in terms of Nairobi. So if I didn't fact check that, but I went to go and create that pitch and send that off to an editor could have easily just Googled that and seen that that is not correct, which is why you always have to fact check your stuff, because you're never too sure what might not be factually correct on AI. So these are some other yeah, sorry, I can't see because of the images, so I have to move it to the side. Okay, so the idea generation prompt. So I have two here, and the difference between them is actually in the bold. So the first one would be that you're a seasoned, you insert the topics that you write about. So for me, it would be travel, beauty, and lifestyle journalist and editor with bylines in many of the major publications. Your niche is, so for me, that would be celebrating Black stories, and you cover, and you can insert examples of the stories that you cover. You know how to identify a journalistic hook and show why a story is worth telling. Because, of course, it's not just about creating a random pitch, it has to have a hook. As we all know, it has to have a reason why an editor should care about commissioning the piece, right? So for the idea generation, you could say, please advise me on 5 pitch ideas I can use for my next brainstorming session. Or another thing you could say is, please provide a summary of the type of stories that insert outlet. So if you, again, like me, I pitch all the time, it gets tiring. You do read these publications, but sometimes you just need to get a summary of what they cover so that you know if your pitch is going to fit there. So I could easily, let's say Nat Geo Traveler, I could put the website into ChatGPT, for example, and say, give me a summary of what they tend to cover, because my goal is to get commissioned. Then it would summarize what those things are about. So here you could put, please provide a summary of the type of stories that Nat Geo Traveler cover, with the goal for me to pitch a story to the I mean, I don't know if this is an editor, but Safari editor, and it will tailor it to that. So now on to pitching. So with the pitching, so AI helps save time. I think with this, I'm sure everybody has had a moment where it takes you hours to produce like a 250 word pitch. And it can get really, really draining. Sometimes you have to do multiple pitches in one day. It takes up a lot of time. And because they're not always commissioned, sometimes you feel like you're wasting your time having to produce so much, but not necessarily always get a response back. AI can help save time with that, and it can help you refine your ideas and the language of your pitch. It can also be a second pair of eyes. And so I'm sure, again, we've all reached out to, whether it's a contact or your friend, and asked them to review a pitch and give them your thoughts. AI just basically replaces that. It saves you the time of having to wait for somebody else to give you feedback. You can get the feedback from AI within seconds, and then you can continue. So now I would say every pitch I do, from idea generation to being ready for it to be sent off, not using all of it on AI, but I can do it all less than an hour, sometimes 30 minutes, because if I already have the ideas and I've already been able to, let's say, write the basic draft of the pitch, then I can just use ChatGPT to give me feedback, and then I can send it off. So 2 prompts that I have here for you guys is, the URXXX will always be the same thing. You're just giving AI a role, because once it knows its role, it's going to stay within that role. And I did mention this later on in the presentation, but AI basically has memory. So within the chat, the dedicated chat that you have, if you tell it that it's something, it will remember that for all the prompts and questions and asks and stuff that you ask moving forward. So I have a dedicated chat to all things pitching. I just call it my pitching dashboard. And in the beginning, I've told the AI platform what I write about, what it will be for me, which is basically my counsel. It's an editor to me, and providing feedback on my pitches. So the first one would be, you are insert what you do, and also tell the AI platform what it is. Here are the notes I've written for a topic pitch that I am writing for insert outlet. My goal is to maximize my chances of landing a commission for the outlet as a freelancer. Please turn these notes into you can tell it how many words you want the pitch to be, using this as a reference for the pitch structure. And another one could be if you already have the pitch written out already, using this pitch as reference for the, sorry, I'm talking way ahead of myself. This means that I'm so excited about this work, by the way, but you can tell it basically that you have a pitch and then you're going to use another pitch that you have as reference, because again, remember, we already have all this work, so it's not a case of we're telling AI to just generate things out of thin air, which then comes into question of, are we actually creating this work ourselves? It's you're using the work that you already have, you're just finding a way to automate these things. So you could tell it to be a critic and provide you with honest feedback. So you can ask it, what are your pitch's strengths? What can you do to improve the pitch? You can tell it to keep the word count below a certain word count. And so I was going to have pitches already for this, but I actually just thought it's best that I do it on the go so that you can see how my thought process is as well. So let's use the first one. And let's use Claude this time. And I'm also going to just use my bio so you can see. Let's use that. So I'm going to tell it that basically it's me. So I'm going to tell it that you are a travel, beauty, and lifestyle journalist with bylines. This part isn't that necessary. You are also a lonely planet. And of course, this prompt, by the way, could be super duper long. But again, I didn't want to give such a long prompt and let you guys experiment. So here are the notes I've written for a pitch on St. Lucia. I'm including this because I actually did write an article on St. Lucia for Condé Nast Traveler, so it's just basically stuck at the top of my head. For Condé Nast Traveler, my goal is to maximize my chances of landing a commission for the outlet as a freelancer. Please turn these notes into let's say 250 word count word pitch using. I'm going to remove the reference for the pitch structure because that would require me to go into my emails. But now I'm just going to write some general points. So 7-day trip, went scuba diving. And this is what I did on the press trip that I did go on. Went scuba diving, stayed at Sugar Beach, and this is going to be a terrible pitch, but you'll see how it's using the information that I'm using. Stayed in Sufrio, which is a place in St. Lucia, interacted with locals, was a great experience as a Black solo female traveler. And what you can even do is give it a title. So you can say the working title of the pitch is my experiences traveling St. Lucia as a solo Black woman. And that was actually, it's kind of the title. I think I'm missing a word or two, but let's go with that for now. So as you can see, it's actually creating an email for me because I've told it I want to create a pitch. So it's crafting a 250 word pitch. It's giving me the subject line. It's given space for the editor's name. As a travel journalist, so it's using my bio, wants me to propose an article. And then it's got some key highlights here. So one thing about me when I pitch is that I don't like bullet points. I know some people do. I don't. So if this is what I was going to send, which I wouldn't send this, but I could easily put, I don't want, oh, I don't want to shout at it, but I don't want to include bullet points. Please write in prose. And for example, let's say I need to include in the main body that I don't know, met the love of my life. The love of my life is St. Lucia in Castries, which is the capital. Please include this and write how that affected me as a traveler, for example. And you'll see that I'll end up rewriting this now. And so now this is in prose. It's now talking about the narrative takes an unforeseen turn in Castries, about a chance encounter. So again, what you put in is what you get out. So obviously you wouldn't send this because again, human judgment is very, very needed. But let's say you had the bullet points about this pitch already, it would be able to basically help you turn your pitch into prose. And then you would be able to further edit that before you send it off. So again, it's not that you're generating this and sending it off straight away. That is never the goal. So we are here. Okay. So the takeaways here is that AI can be biased, and it's something that people bring up a lot as well. So one way to override this is actually to make AI a devil's advocate. So let's say, for example, you put that pitch in and you wanted feedback. Instead of just saying, what do you think about this? You could say, act as a devil's advocate. Again, you're giving AI a role, or act as a critic, or your role is to criticize my work and tell me what's wrong with it. The more you put that role into perspective, the more that it will give you exactly what you need. As I mentioned, AI has memory, so you can create a dedicated chat. Like I said, I have a pitching dashboard that I use. So everything that I've put into it, it remembers it in terms of my tone, in terms of the things that I like to write about, in terms of the things that I hate. So I hate cliches or cliched words. So if they're going to use, like nestled in, which is such an AI word that is used, I could say I really dislike that word and it will remember that for the rest of the chat, for example. And then again, AI helps to refine ideas that you already have. If you just ask it to generate a pitch out of nowhere, which I just did, you would see that it takes a lot of work. It's not that you just generate and send, but if you already had the bullet points for your pitch, you just need some help during your writer's block to put it into prose. It can help you refine the ideas and the language of that. Now onto email improvement. So obviously now you have your pitch and you want to basically send off the email. And also this includes things like follow-ups. This also includes maybe you want to negotiate for extra money. I know in the UK, it's not something that we like to talk about a lot, and it's not something we're all necessarily confident with. ChatGPT or AI can help with that as well. And again, if you have a dedicated chat to this, it can learn to mimic your tone of style and personal style, tone of voice and personal style to help you write and refine emails in the future. So another thing that is really useful is that you can add entire threads, email threads for context. So let's say, for example, I was having a really difficult conversation with an editor, and the same way again, now treating it like your friend. If you tell your friend just about one particular email, they're not going to know how to give you the best advice because they don't understand the 8 emails that came before it, what was said before, what your response was. So if you put the whole thread, you can actually just ask AI to create the next response for you. So it can help you in times where you're not too sure what to say. It gives you something to go with. And then, as I mentioned, it can help you with negotiating. I've used AI for negotiating and I've gotten more money. So if that's the only reason why you decide to use AI, please let it be that. And then obviously there are good and bad AI assisted emails. You can spot a bad one from a mile away, again, because I would never take an email that has been generated and just send it off. It would always be a case of, I'm going to edit it, I'm going to add my own flair on it, if you will. And sometimes you just want to make sure that your tone or whatever else is basically the way that you want it to be. Again, the same way that you would send it to a friend and be like, am I being too harsh here? Am I being too assertive? You know, that kind of stuff. So it's always good to edit thoroughly with anything you use, and not just send a bad AI assisted email. A bad one can typically include is the tone. So the tone tends to be very, very formal. It starts off with dear versus hi or hello. It often like summarizes their points in a very robotic way. Often ends with like best regards. So when you get those type of emails where they're not really speaking in a very human-like way, that's when you can tell that AI has been used, which is why you can basically ask it to maintain the tone of the bullet points or whatever you've asked it to maintain the tone and the essence of what you've put. So some prompts for this, again, you can put you're telling AI what its role is. Your goal is to, so let's say the goal was to earn more money. So let's say an editor came back and offered you 20p a word and you wanted to get 50p a word. So you can tell it, you are a seasoned journalist with over 10 years of experience. Your goal is to secure a higher rate for a commission that's just been given to you. The current rate is, what did I just say, 20p. I want it to be 50p. Please write an email to the director of insert outlet, explaining why I should get more money. And please maintain a professional or assertive or polite or friendly, whatever tone you would like, maintain that tone. Another one could be, you are, again, your goal is to, and help me improve and polish the email that I have written, maintain the tone, the essence, and the email length. So if you already have the email, because sometimes it's not about just writing it in bullet point form. Sometimes you already have the email, you just want the second eye on it. You can tell it to improve and polish that email whilst maintaining your tone, and then essentially it would be able to create it in that way. Now on to writing your draft. So there's good and bad practice when it comes to writing drafts. And I think a lot of people think when you're talking about using AI to write a draft, it means, again, you are just producing the entire draft and sending as is. I am by no means saying that is what you should do. So bad practice would be generating a full article with no input. And good practice would be, you have your bullet points already, or you have your very terrible draft and you use that in order to produce or enhance your writing. Another way to basically take advantage of AI is to get feedback on your style of writing versus the publication that you're writing for. So you can put links if it's the paid version of AI, and I believe with most of the free versions, you would need to actually copy and paste, but you could copy and paste an article and put that into AI and basically tell AI to use that article as the reference of style, and make sure that you're sticking to that reference because you're writing for a particular publication. The reason why I also think that using AI for writing a draft is really good is because, as we all know, it's so much easier to edit than it is to create from scratch. We've all had that white page syndrome where we stare at a white blank page and we don't know what to do, and it could just make our head spiral. Meanwhile, when you create the first draft and you see how bad the first draft is, you're able to go in and actually create something so much better. So definitely it can help with, if you have that white blank page and you don't know what to do, sometimes just creating a really, really bad draft, even without your own bullet points, to be honest, because even that draft that just got created about meeting the love of my life in Castries, I can look at that, whatever that said, I already know it's going to be terrible. And I can go in and be like, well, by the way, guys, I didn't meet the love of my life in Castries, but we're running with this example now. So if I did meet the love of my life in Castries, I could turn around and be like, and type, well, actually, it happened this way. So AI doesn't know my story. Let me go back in and like write about this better now. So it can just get you going. I've already mentioned the article links in the prompts to reference publication house style. And remember to be specific. Again, with this love of the life example, once you add it in, it knows what you're talking about. I could have gone on to create more of a fictitious story if I wanted to, and it would become more specific down the line. An example of that is, again, like an article on traveling to Morocco, if that's what I asked ChatGPT to write, is very different from traveling to Morocco as a Black woman. The moment I put that Black woman by creating a draft, which I'll show you in a second, it will create a completely different draft. So let's use ChatGPT again. Oh, I forgot the prompts. So let me just present this real quick and then we'll go back. So the prompt for this one is a little bit longer. And it could be longer than this if you wanted it to, because again, it's all about what you put into it. So for this one is, I need your help crafting the perfect article. You are a insert title with the ability to help people envision your work. This is obviously for travel writing, so you can adjust that if you don't do travel writing, but without the cliches. As I mentioned, I hate cliches. I've been struggling to write this article and I need help putting it into prose. The title of the article is insert. Below is the brief. If you have a brief, then this is the place to put it. If you already have the pitch, because you know this has been granted, this has been green lighted already, you can put the pitch below. My bullet points, or your first draft, if you already have the terrible first draft that I have, turn this into a word count article for insert the outlet, including these sections, include sections, and your word count, and use these articles as inspiration and reference. And here's what I've written so far. So I've actually used this quite a few times because, again, I'm someone who stares at blank screen a lot, and I have so many things, as was mentioned in my bio, that sometimes I can't switch off from other things. So I will write my bullet points, and sometimes I just need to see a terrible draft, and then suddenly the creativity has come back. So this one, again, we're going to just adapt it a little bit because obviously I don't have all the points for this. So let's use this here. So you are again, travel journalist. I'll even put 3 words. I'm struggling to write this article. Traveling to Morocco as a woman, I'll start with. So I don't have this right now. Turn this into a 250, 800 word article for the Telegraph. Including these sections. So I will make up sections. So intro, 50 words. Being in Marrakesh as a woman, 100 words. Other countries to consider. So that's 150. Questioning my maths right now. 650, yeah, words. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but it's going to work today. And please use these articles as inspiration and a reference. So let's say, so now I'm just going to go to Telegraph Travel. And I forgot about their table for a second, but it might not work because I've used, in fact, let's go to Trusty Condé Nast because I do love them. So let's use that, and they don't have the table. So let's use this for now. And let's change this back to Condé Nast. And so now, because this is the paid version I have right here, I can take some of these links. Let's take some more. Because obviously, again, if you were, let's say, giving this to a subcontract, well, you wouldn't give writing to a subcontractor, but let's say you were working in-house in the marketing firm and you were giving something to a subcontractor or to a freelancer, you have to give them reference points, right? And so that's why it's important to give more than one so it can kind of understand. Let's put this too. Just taking random things now. And here's, well, I haven't written anything right this second, so I'll leave that. Actually, I believe if this one is up, I can take the paragraph from the top just to, okay, they do not have my article up right now, but I wrote an article for Intrepid about Morocco, which is what I was going to use, but it's fine. So now this is traveling to Morocco as a woman, and it's going to do this. And then what I'm going to do is basically do the same prompts and now add as a Black woman, just so you can see how it changes. And also this part here is important. You see how it says memory updated? This is where, when I keep saying that you're giving ChatGPT or AI a role, such as you are an editor, you are a journalist, or you hate certain cliches, that kind of stuff, you can constantly update the memory. And so it will show up like this. And also, as you can see, it says manage memories here. But here you can see it has the intro, being in Marrakesh as a woman, other countries to consider, if Morocco sounds too intense. See, I could go back afterwards and say my intention wasn't to say that Morocco was too intense. It's actually to say that I really enjoyed Morocco. I just want to give alternatives. It will change this part right here. I can guarantee that. So, and now it's created others, and then it has a conclusion. Now, if I actually had to write an article on traveling to Morocco as a woman, just seeing this and knowing how bad this is going to be would allow me to then go, oh wait, actually I haven't been to Iceland, but Japan is a really good one. Okay, that's one to consider, but I can remove Iceland. Maybe these aren't the reasons I agree with for Japan. So now I can go in and actually start to generate my own first draft. So now I'm just going to put this as a Black woman. Oh, Black woman under, in fact, over 50. Let's see what that comes up with. But you'll see that it should start changing. So this part already for Black women over 50, so it's now going to start changing things. Now it's talking about how the attention is actually magnified for Black women. And then now it started to talk about different countries. And so here, because I put Black women, here it has ideal for mature travelers. It's now included Ghana because I mentioned that I was a Black traveler and Ghana is a popular destination for the diaspora. So yeah, so we don't need to see the end of this. So, okay. Okay, so now on to editing. So AI tools can basically play the role as your sub editor. Again, if you give it a role, it'll be able to do what you need. So now let's say you've created your first draft, you now need to edit it, or it's your second edit, whatever it is, but you can edit. This is also the same for your emails. It can edit your emails. Again, if you give it a bad draft, it can edit that too. I use AI for line editing. I think this is actually one of the best ways to use AI to be efficient. Again, you can still put your own spin on editing. It's not that you take exactly what comes out. It's a great way to help. It can provide feedback on the clarity of your piece. It can help you with your sentence structure. We all have certain ways that we like to write, and sometimes it might be just we're using long sentences every single time. It can provide feedback on the fact that you need to switch up your sentence structure, or your grammar isn't the greatest, or whatever it is, but it can provide feedback on that. And I realize I'm nearly on an hour, so I'm going to skim through the next part. But essentially, another prompt. You're an experienced sub-editor. We are going to line edit my work. Please edit this article for clarity, conciseness, and correct grammar. Maintain my writing style and tone, and flag any factual concerns. Don't change the core message. So you can also do this by paragraph, or you can put the whole thing in. Personally, I go in paragraph by paragraph so that I can edit and make sure that I'm basically keeping it really tight. Another thing you can do is that if you don't actually like the structure of your article, so if it's not flowing the way that you want, then you can actually ask it about, do you think certain paragraphs should go somewhere else? And it can basically give you feedback on that as well. So I'm gonna have to skim through this part now, but yeah, either way, this requires a lot on your part to like go back and forth and like question, because who knows your career better than yourself. But essentially, I know that the journalism industry doesn't always seem the most optimistic, and it's feeling pretty bleak for a lot of people, especially as freelancers. You can use AI to basically find out your best skills, also find out your transferable skills, how you stand out from other applicants, and also how to create your CV. So one thing that I've done in the past was put my CV into ChatGPT and ask it, based on my CV, can you please suggest 5 other professions that I could consider based on what I find fulfilling? And so, funnily enough, it did come up with entrepreneurship, which I was already in. But it can do that for you, and then you can also put more information to say, I don't enjoy entrepreneurship. I was hoping to have a job where I was doing more data analysis or something, and it can also help you do that as well. So the takeaways with that is that, or the takeaways for all of this is that you have to experiment with AI platforms. So you don't just use one. I was also saying this to Jenna Resources before the talk started. You have to use many. That's how you find out which ones that you like, which ones work best with you, which ones have the strengths that you need, the ones that have the cons so you can avoid it. You always have to fact check. Always. It will save a lot of embarrassment in the future. One prompt will not give you everything you need. So these prompts that I've provided for you, I do not use them all the time. I sometimes have to change them up because of my needs. Also, something to bear in mind is that I don't use AI for the entire process, barely ever. It's usually one part that maybe I need at that particular time. There are still many times where I write an entire draft by myself because I can. As I said, we have the accolades, we have the expertise. It's just sometimes you use it as a tool to get over an issue that you have. But if you keep adding information and asking questions in your dedicated chat, you will eventually get to the answer that you desire, the same way that you would if you were talking to a human. And also your prompts get better with practice. The prompts I use now are not the same prompts I was using when I first tried it. In fact, when I first tried, I was putting things like write 800 words on Morocco because I wanted to see what it came up with. And the answers, of course, are very different from the prompts that I've included in this presentation. And so that was all from me. So I guess it's on to Q&A, Kaylee. I can't see the chat.
I am here.
I can't see the chat. I can't see anything.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. You've incorporated so much information into that talk.
Thank you. There's so much more I wish I could give. This talk needs like 3 hours, honestly.
So obviously we've got some questions that people submitted beforehand. I feel like you've naturally covered quite a lot of them. There are any questions that people have that they want to raise their hand on Zoom or put into the chat, do feel free. I'm happy to read them out as well. But some of the ones that I highlighted that I don't think we did cover, how do I use AI to find the best quote or top line in a transcript? For example, the one that is most likely to resonate with readers and get a click. Is there a way that you have tried to do that before?
I haven't, because I haven't needed to, but off the top of my head, if I was going to, you could, I mean, Otter's pretty good for this stuff as well. So again, like Otter's AI, so you could use it for that as well. So you could get it to analyze the transcript, and sometimes it does actually pull out the top quotes and stuff. But if you already had the written transcript, let's say you now wanted to export that from Otter, you could put it into something like, let's say, ChatGPT, and you could ask it to analyze the transcript and draw out the statements that it thinks is the most impactful, and ask it to give you an explanation as to why. So that way, it will come out with the quotes that it seemed, or obviously you have to tell it your audience as well. So it would be a case of extract the most impactful statements. My goal is to use it for social media content creation, and my audience is Black travelers who want to see Africa. I'm literally making this up on the spot. But as you can see, the more extensive and the more detailed you make it, the more it's going to be able to understand what is impactful to you and what you need, versus it just giving you what it deems to be impactful in your transcript. So that would be how I would do it. Another way that you can also build on that is maybe also ask it to rank it in terms of what it deems to be the most impactful to the least impactful. You can also tell it things like, give me 10 quotes. So you can put the number of quotes that you want. If you want less, you can ask it for less. If you want more, you can ask it for more. You can ask it to put it into a table for you if it's the paid version of, let's say, ChatGPT or Claude. No, Claude, I think you can do it for free. ChatGPT, I think you have to do it when it's paid. But you could ask it to put it into a table form with the columns and the rows that you need. So the possibilities, honestly, are endless. And the reason why I keep saying to treat AI like it's your friend is because the more you talk to it, in fact, I went to a talk once where someone said that he spends his nighttime just like talking to ChatGPT for hours. And I found it weird, but I get it now, because the more you ask it, the more you just find out if it can even do the things that you want, and then you go from there.
What would you say is the easiest and quickest way to check that an AI is not hallucinating when it writes something? So, hallucination, for those who don't know, is the generating of incorrect or misleading results within the prompts. Is there any way to get AI to provide its own sources for the information that it gathers?
It can, but that could also be part of the hallucination sometimes. So sometimes what I would do if I find AI hallucinating is, one, start a different chat, because again, the chats have memory. So the
Yeah.
moment you're into that loop, it's going to be quite difficult to get out of it, because you won't be able to find at which point it started to take the information and get a bit weird with it. Another thing would be that you never use just one AI tool. Like I said, I use ChatGPT sometimes, but the things that I'm writing about, because they're my stories, like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and stuff, they can't do what I do. And that's why I'm never worried about AI, because it literally can't write about my experiences. However, if it was something that involved a lot of facts, I would not solely rely on AI to get that stuff done for me. I would be checking multiple things. You would still check Google. You would do all the other things that you would do normally, but you just have to be more careful because you're aware of the cons. The same way that, you if you see a non-reputable news source on Instagram, you're going to go straight to Google and check it, is the same way that you would need to if you feel that ChatGPT is, or sorry, I keep using ChatGPT because it's the normal, or it's the popular one, but if you feel like AI is hallucinating, you'll naturally need to go and fact check to compare.
Thank you. That's really good advice. And I think we have some editors among us tonight. So, a question that was submitted beforehand was, what is a good way to perhaps introduce using AI, the idea of using it, to their wider team? I suppose because there is that kind of, I guess, innate fear at the minute, isn't there? That it's
Yeah.
going to overtake people's jobs. So, how would you propose selling it to a wider team to get them on board?
So everything at work, especially when I was in the 9 to 5 or in the office space, corporate space, is that it's all a business case. So as long as you can prove a business case for anything, it's going to work. So I wouldn't go in and just say, hey, we should use ChatGPT or use AI or use Claude or whatever, because especially within the corporate space, you have so many other AI platforms that are paid that you don't necessarily have access to, but your job does because they have the money and the budget. So I would do the research to find out what these are. If there are free versions, I would use them so that I can come and actually show this is how my work was beforehand. This is how my work is now that I'm using it. It might be a case where people aren't clued up on ChatGPT or AI. Maybe you need to do a lunch and learn or something. Maybe you need to put people or quell people's fears and concerns so that you're leading them towards the business case, which is AI can help you in the long run. And it's a process. It's never going to be an overnight thing where everybody's just on board. Even if they do agree to it, it involves a lot of onboarding and teaching people and trying to change culture, because culture is a tough one to crack. So yeah, I think as long as everything goes back to the business case, even without talking about AI, it could be talking about anything. There's just a lot of convincing that needs to be done, but it can be done when you can show the results.
What can we do on, I guess, the flip side of it all to ensure that people don't downplay the value of our work as writers by claiming they can just use AI instead? I think you touched upon it a little bit but what else can we do?
Yeah, I think again, it just goes back down to we are quite unlucky that everybody believes that our work, if the work isn't coming from our fingertips, every single word, then people believe that we're not writing. But again, to me, AI has just replaced the annoying part of myself that would beg my friends to check my work all the time. It's the human judgment that is really, really necessary. Like, we are experts in our own right. We are using AI like a tool, just like everybody else, to make our work more efficient. And most of the time, as you guys can see from the presentation, a lot of it is just automating things, but not necessarily taking over the entire process. So it's really not a case where we are writing everything on AI and just churning it in. We know what bad writing looks like, and we know how our role in the process is actually making things better. I don't know if that's the best answer, but I think that's also because for me in general, I always let my accolades speak for myself. So I don't really worry too much if somebody thinks I'm not a good writer. If anybody follows me on Instagram, I write grammatical errors all the time, and I always say I'm a great writer. You can't tell me anything about this. So I have the same thought process when it comes to how people see me and my writing, because I know a lot of people do question the fact I talk about AI so openly that maybe she's not writing everything, but I know that I am. So as long as I know, it's all good.
It is all good.
Yeah.
And just bearing the time in mind as well, so I'm just going to ask you
Yeah.
this. Um, Obviously you've covered so much tonight about what you found AI useful for within your own work roles, but is there anything that you would like to see AI be able to do that you don't feel that it has quite got right yet?
Oh, I wish I had more time to think about this one. um, I guess because I'm still learning myself, I don't think about what limitations there are, because I know that maybe it's actually out there. I just haven't found it yet. But I think the biggest one would be the fact checking. If there was a way to know that the information that you're being given is actually what it is. Um, Funnily enough, I'm quite content with how ChatGPT on AI, etc., is for writing. It would probably come in other parts of my work when I use AI, which is why I'm struggling to think about it as a journalist. But I think the biggest one probably would be would probably be the fact checking. But I'm actually pretty content. I'm content with the paid versions because, again, when you
Yeah.
start, you see the limitations, you easily upgrade, and then you're introduced to a world of other wonders, basically. And I'm still enjoying finding those at the moment.
That's fair. Okay, thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you everyone for
Thank
joining
you.
us. And it's been such an insightful chat. Thank you so much, Vivienne.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who came as well.